whenever he lost his temper, I'd be devastated for days. And the kids would just avoid looking at my face because if they see my sad face, they don't want to see it. So just they stop looking at my face. So I tried ouch the first time and he just screamed at me, yeah, ouch, it should hurt, you deserve it.
Warning, listening to this podcast is going to make your marriage irresistible. Whether you're exhausted from carrying everything and just want him to step up and be a real partner, or you're lonely and aching to feel close and adored again, that's totally fixable. I'm Laura Doyle, creator of the 6 Intimacy Skills. For 27 years, I've been watching women go from burnt out and disconnected to having the passionate, easy marriage they always wanted. Love is learnable. The secrets are real, and this is where I teach them. So glad you're here. Henriette spent 28 years walking on eggshells, terrified of her husband's temper, and just as terrified of losing the marriage completely. She read every book. She went to counseling for years. Nothing improved. And then one word changed everything. Stay to the end for your Try It Tonight takeaway. I'll show you exactly what word it was and why it works, even when he laughs in your face the first time you try it, because that's exactly what happened to Henriette. Real women, real marriages. This is the Empowered Wife Podcast. Henriette, welcome to the Empowered Wife Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here.
Oh, great. Well, let's start from the beginning. What attracted you to your husband, and how did you know he was the one?
Okay, well, I'll start at the beginning. When I was around 7 years old, we joined a very strict religion. And one of the first people we visited was actually my husband's home. And I was 7, he was around 9. We didn't like each other. We immediately did not like each other. And so 4 years after, I was grade 10 and he was first year medical school. And I went to his hometown and to his church. And I looked beautiful. My braces was just off. I lost some weight. I was just feeling great. And I saw him for the first time in years, and he looked like a movie star. His son was tanned. He had these light blue eyes, blonde, long hair, and tall, and just beautiful, crisp white shirt. And he just looked gorgeous. And but the funny thing is he couldn't keep his eyes off me the whole day. He didn't stop looking at me. And I just felt so excited about that. But then forward 2 years from there, at 2 years later, I started studying very hard because I wanted to go into medical school. And he now was third year medical school, and he came to visit us, because he didn't know anybody in near the hospital. So he visited mainly my sister because she's older and they were friends. And one day he knocked on the door and I said, "Oh, my sister's not here." And he said, "I know." And that was the clue that he came to visit me. So it was just very exciting. And I at that time, now things are changed. He got a little depressed because of all the studying. I was overweight. I was studying all the time. So we kind of met each other at that time at our lowest. So our first date was wonderful. He took me to the beach and we swam in the ocean in the middle of the night, and it was so magical. But that for me was kind of the last of the happy memories, was that first date. Because, yes. And you, Laura, made it so clear to me why. I always looked for answers, and now I know why that is. But mainly, I think because we were so good on paper. We were both medical school students. We both were in the same religion. We were both vegan, because that religion you have to be vegan, which is a big deal. And he was tall. I was quite tall. I'm quite tall, and I was overweight. So I didn't want to feel big next to a guy, so that was a big deal to me. A guy that's tall, it makes me feel small. So he was so perfect on paper, and we were taught in that church to marry somebody in that church. So I don't want to say it was a arranged marriage at all, but it was almost where immediately you think this person is my marriage material. So from the first moment, we kind of knew in the back of our minds that this is the perfect marriage material for both of us.
Wow.
So immediately, I think that control set in.
Oh, so even though you have this romantic first date where you swim in the ocean at night, and it sounds like you were uh, feeling romantic feelings towards him.
Yeah.
But really, there was also this other overarching theme of him checking all these boxes that you were supposed to check
Yes.
for
Yes.
your life partner.
I
Okay.
know. We weren't taught to marry somebody kind. We weren't taught to marry somebody even who who matches with your personality. We were taught to marry somebody in your own church and somebody who's same diet and all those religious things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So he ticked all those boxes. But of course, even being in the same religion, you're always a little different. So that's where the control started. And I never knew this until you told me this. Because in my mind, he showed me that he had a temper, and I was scared of his temper from day one because I was scared of conflict. So the moment I started knowing he had a temper, and I thought that was why things went downhill. But when I met you, Laura, you showed me that it was that control because for example, suddenly I was in charge of his studies. Like if he didn't study because he's feeling depressed, I was like, "Why aren't you studying? Why are you not studying for your test?" And he then started rebelling against me. Number two, the church. Why are you playing rock music? Why are you not going to church on time? And then I would feel so sad because he'd get angry at me and I'd be this innocent victim, right? I just want to go to church on time. I just want him to study. That all seems so good. But helpfulness, like you taught
Trying to
me,
help.
is
Yes, you're trying to help.
they're so helpful, right? Helpfulness is the worst thing you can do in a relationship. I even dressed him. He was dressed really poorly. I mean, he looked beautiful that one day, but in general, he would dress really bad. So I immediately started buying him cool clothes, and even dressed him from day one. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
So from, we had this beautiful moment, but then immediately that control sets in. And the more, he lost his temper, the more I walked on eggshells around him. But he probably felt that I was trying to control him or change him or, all those things that you showed me. So yeah,
So it's well, and and it sounds like you had the best of intentions, of course. You just wanted him
yeah,
to do well at school and you wanted him to
yeah,
look nice and
yeah,
you wanted it to be on time to church. So you
yeah,
were offering these helpful suggestions.
yeah.
Now, so with only one good date, how, how did you ever get progress to marriage?
So remember, I was overweight at that time. I studied every day. I lost a lot of my friends because I was focused on getting into medical school. And so at that time I was kind of lost and alone. And, so you have this guy who's perfect on paper and you really have this trauma bond because we grew up in this strict church. You have so much in common. You understand each other's struggles and pains from childhood. So we really had like any toxic bond almost you're so close but then you're also so each other's enemies, right? And it was typical like that. And I thought of leaving, but really I think I had nothing to go to because I had either studying all day or this relationship that has so much promise but is causing so much pain, you know?
Gosh,
Yeah,
so you were struggling right from the get go, but
yeah,
it also felt, um, well, not like a prison exactly, but,
yeah.
you were a
I
little
felt
trapped
like
there. You did?
Yeah, I felt trapped because I had nowhere to go to, but and I also thought, why is that? Because in this religion, you can't do sports, we didn't have money for hobbies and stuff. So I was very, that you taught me, I had no self-care since
Oh,
childhood, so it was I'm in this strict bubble and I have no self-care. I have no well-developed self except for my school, which I love and did well at. I had nothing else really. I had no self-care. So, and if you're in a relationship that you walk on eggshells, you immediately lose the little bit of self that you had, right? So
yeah.
I had no self to go back to. And this is all the stuff I learned when I met you and can put the puzzle pieces together.
But at the time, you just thought, "Oh, I'm miserable.
Mhm.
My life is no joy in my life
Yeah, I felt
except for."
trapped. And then obviously in this religion too, we no intimacy before marriage kind of thing. And I was walking on eggshells with him, so I was, couldn't relax around him anyway. And he was not happy with that. He didn't believe in all the rules with the church. You know what I mean? So we were already fighting about that. So I also felt like, I can't date him too long without getting married because, that's not fair on him. And, so at 21, he asked me to get married. And I really thought it was a bad idea because we're fighting all the time. I'm so nervous around him. He's clearly not happy either. But I also felt like unless somebody comes to get me, this is my future. And I just got married. And even on my wedding day, which was beautiful, I looked beautiful. I lost all my weight with Weight Watchers. I looked amazing. He looked like a movie star that he always does. And I was still hoping somebody would come get me, I was so unhappy. Yeah.
So anybody looking from the outside would say, "Well, they're
Yeah.
perfect for each other.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah.
religion, the same
Yeah.
field of study, and they're both
Mhm.
so gorgeous," and
Yeah.
yet you were unhappy even on that
Yes.
day.
And the
Wow.
honeymoon was terrible. And so
Oh.
basically for me, the then it became my biggest fear was conflict. But the more I pulled away from him because I feared conflict and I walk on eggshells, the more within a few years he started avoiding me. Of course, he felt, rejected, and I was so nervous around him that we'd had barely ever any fun. And then he started avoiding me. And then my fear became conflict and neglect. And I always called it I fear conflict and I fear neglect. And that was the two things that broke my heart. And I had no idea how to solve either.
Yeah, it does sound heartbreaking, and
Mhm.
there's no nice middle part there. There's
Yeah.
only, yeah, feeling abandoned or else,
Yeah.
yeah, or having the fear of his temper
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds incredibly lonely,
Yeah.
very
It
painful.
was. So then we waited 5 years for my studies to finish, and then we started having children, and we immigrated actually to a different country together, which is crazy if you think these two young people not getting along, fearing each other really, and now immigrating to a new country. It's
You were
absolutely
even
crazy.
more isolated than you were before.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no
So
family and
then
friends around. Yeah.
we we had four beautiful kids, but then that became almost the biggest reason for conflict because Laura, I wasn't on my page. And again, this is all the knowledge I have now, right? I thought I was protecting my children from his temper, but really I didn't know how to be on my own page because, you know, I just thought I have to protect them at all costs. And I had a stepdad that said mean things to us, and my mom did nothing. So I always thought I'm going to protect my children against any mean, critical words. That broke my heart that she never protected us. So my plan was to always protect my children against any criticism and harsh words. Yeah. But that just made things so bad because I protected them from his harsh words. So he would be angrier. He would avoid us. He wouldn't want to do family time. He didn't help me at all because he didn't feel accepted, I guess, or loved. So he would just not help me. If I was working, he would look after the kids. But when I'm there, he would never do anything for me. Or if I'm sick, he wouldn't help me. He'd just be like, screw you. And then on top of that, if he lost his keys or something, he would have a blow up and I would be upset and like be scared or like say not really help him look for it because he's just screaming, you know what I mean? And so he would just like nothing I did helped. You know what I mean? I was just stuck in this eggshell situation,
Oh, like a
I
horror
guess.
movie, really. It's tense
Yeah.
all the time, it sounds like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's no playfulness, no love, no joy. There's
No.
just functioning.
Well, sometimes we'd be very close, but then that would you know what I mean? Like a second later he'd be in a bad mood and then I'm even more heartbroken, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
'cause you got your hopes up because you were
Yeah.
close a minute there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
So I started looking for answers from day one. I remember when I was 21, just married, I went to the hospital library. And weirdly enough, under the psychology section, they had a marriage help book. And I took out this book and that was like the first month of being married. I already was looking for answers.
Wow.
And, because my mom was divorced 4 times. She was divorced 3 times, married 4 times, and she was never happy.
Oh,
And my grandma was married to my grandpa. He had a bad temper and he was so mean to everybody, and my great grandma was even worse. So I was just, looking for answers about
yeah.
how do we always end up with people with tempers, walking on eggshells, and this has been at least 3 generations that I know of, you
So you
know?
have no role models to
Yeah.
go to for something that you would wanna have. They're all
No,
except what you wouldn't wanna have.
just questions,
Oh,
just questions, you know?
yeah, very.
Yeah, there's always like, well, he wasn't close to his mom, or my dad wasn't this or that. You know, there's always these questions. Well, maybe he was like that because of that, but we never had any answers, you know? So I started looking for these books, and this one book, the one I took out at 21, said you should call your husband stud muffin, and you should bat your eyes, and you should kind of cry when you're sad, or you should kind of beg him for stuff, you know? And I tried all that. That did not work. You know what I mean? That was the worst advice. Yeah. He just thought I was manipulative and kind of, like that did not work.
No,
So I read every book there is, every book I've ever that I could find. I read on, and lots of them are beautiful. And at the end of the day, could almost say the same, be in the same vein as your advice, but it's not anything practical. It's not anything that you would know in the moment what to do. You know what I mean?
I
Like
do.
say the book, it would also say increase your self-worth, increase your love of self. But how do you do that really? You know what I mean? Like just these vague advice, beautiful advice, but not anything that ever helped me.
Wow. So even
Yeah.
more frustrating because you read the books
Yeah.
and then you have an understanding, but then you don't have any there's no transformation in your marriage.
Yeah, no, nothing
But
ever
yeah,
helped. Whenever he lost his temper, I'd be devastated for days, and the kids would just avoid looking at my face because if they see my sad face, they don't want to see it. So just they stop looking at my face, and that was, what can I do? I can't get myself out of that sadness when somebody goes off on you?
right,
Yeah,
right. It's legit. You were really hurt. So
yeah,
it's yeah, appropriate to be
yeah.
sad.
And
It must be
anything
hard
like
for you.
if you do boundaries, like you said, Laura, like a war boundary, you're not going to talk to me like that. That does not work. That makes things worse, right? Because you're not just fearing conflict, you're also fearing withdrawal, right? So you between the conflict and the withdrawal. So you're really stuck between those two.
Yes. Yes, painful place to be.
Yeah. So 15 years ago, my sister actually, because my sister was in the same type of marriage, she gave me the Surrendered Wife.
Oh,
Now, I want to tell you that's a beautiful book, but I guess I would say I wasn't ready for it because
yeah.
what happened was, number one, the name. Because of the church thing, immediately your mind goes to submissive wife, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
surrendered and submissive, the words so close, and being English my second language, I guess, like I confused those two. So I immediately thought, okay, submissive wife, you should submit. But then I tried a few things. Like, for example, at that time, I'll compare the two to you then and now. I tried Ouch. And I'm only saying this because I want to tell people who might try these things and not get the success that they should get, right? So I tried Ouch the first time and he just screamed at me, yeah, ouch, it should hurt, you deserve it. So I thought, oh, like, Ouch does not work.
Not work with him.
That does
No.
not help. This makes it worse. He just like
Yeah.
almost laughed at me. Yeah, it should hurt because you're selfish or whatever.
Wow.
And I tried whatever you think, but because I was kind of walking on eggshells, I used it when he said, say he would say, where are we going? Where are we going today? I would say, whatever you think, and he'd be like, "S- be shut, be quiet. Like, who are you? Do you have no personality? Are you, because that is the wrong place to use whatever you think. It's not when he wants to actually make you happy because I didn't know he was trying to make me happy, right? I didn't know this before I learned this. So he was actually trying to make me happy, asking, where are we going? I'm scared. I'm walking on eggshells. So I'm saying, oh, let's use the whatever you think, whatever you think. Now he's mad because he wanted to make me happy, really deep down. And I'm kind of, I'm talking as if I'm scared of him almost. Whatever you think. So whatever you think blew up in my face too. He said, whatever. No, I'm asking you, like, don't you have a person, like, he got angry. He felt like I was scared of him almost. But of course, I learned later that whatever you think is about his life and his decisions. So later on, when I used it, say he would say, should I work extra shifts at work? I would say, whatever you think, whatever's best for you, it's your decision. I'm not gonna, like your work, how much your body can take, all that. And he just loved that. He
Oh,
just, so when I use it right 15 years later, it's just magic because he feels so, you know, release from control, right? But it's about his life. Or even shared decisions about the kids, but not when he wants to make you happy, because that's when whatever you think is going to make him explode, if he's a
Yeah.
guy that feels that he can't make you happy.
Yeah. I love
The
it.
next thing that also was bad is duct tape, because when he would go off or have a temper and I'd just be quiet, like duct tape, he would see that almost as like, like either, you're scared of him or you're kind of resentful maybe, So in that moment, duct tape
Yeah. By
just
being quiet. Yeah.
inflamed the situation. And I also saw it as when I was controlling and he went off on me, now I have to duct tape. It's my punishment almost, So I knew I was controlling now. I suggested how he should talk to the kids or whatever. So now he's screaming at me, so I just have to duct tape. So duct tape almost
Oh.
became like a taking abuse, just taking abuse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I put that book back in my shelf and I'm like, this book is
Oh,
not
thank
for me.
you. No.
It's making my life much worse. So I kept on reading, and I read a lot of books about understanding where people are coming from, and all that kind of things. And I tried so hard, but every time somebody would lose their temper or call me names or what, I would go back to the sadness. So it didn't really help. And then also him withdrawing was still very painful because, I avoided him for so long. So now he's still pulling away from me. And that became painful because it almost became equal to the conflict, the pain. The neglect was much less, but as years went by, it became equal pain to the conflict. So nothing was really fixing that yet. So guess what I did? When we came back from holiday, we again had a horrible holiday. I asked, tell him he should be nice to the kids. He did not appreciate me being on his page. And I came back home and I walked around the block and guess what I Googled? You won't believe what I Googled to
What'd you
find
Google?
why is my life still so hard after all the years of counseling? Like, can you imagine? Yeah. I said, why is my life still so hard after 6 years of counseling? Because we went to counseling. Of course, the counselor said, I'm right, he's wrong. She's always backed me up. She always told him, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And it just made things worse. So I Googled, why is my life still so hard after 6 years of counseling? So I think it's so funny because your book is, and so your podcast came up actually. And I started walking and I wanted to do 10,000 steps. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to this podcast. But then I suddenly realized that this is the surrendered wife lady, and I was immediately like, oh, last time this made things worse. But I was like, okay, now I'm going to listen to this podcast. And you know what? I'm so thankful because that first or second podcast, I can't remember now, one or two, you talked about the grumpy guy. You said the grumpy guy. What do you do when you have a grumpy husband? And that is really what I was looking for, right? And you addressed that right away. So you said, try ouch. Now I know I've tried ouch in the past, but you know what? I was desperate. I didn't want to be sad anymore. And my sadness after conflict was now to me at this point worse than anything else. I'm willing to I'm willing to do whatever it takes, right? So I decided, okay, I can't just be quiet when somebody screams at me, calls me that. It makes me too sad. So I'm gonna say ouch. I'm committed, right? Because understanding where they're coming from is only half a piece. You can't just take and take and take. So
Yeah.
the next time he called me a name or screamed or something, I just said, I stood up, I looked at him, I said, ouch. And he said, yes, that should hurt. You deserve it or whatever. And I looked at him, I said, ouch. I said it again. I stood on my own 2 feet and I looked at him. I separated from the conflict. I looked and I said, ouch. And that second ouch, Laura, it just changed my life. He just said, I'm not trying to actually hurt you, and I'm trying to explain to you. And it was the first time in 28 years where he backed down, even for a little bit, and said, I'm actually not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to communicate my feelings. And it was just, I can't tell you, but in an instant, my fear of conflict just disappeared.
Wow.
For the first time in well, probably my whole life, because I was born fearing conflict. Um, I just lost my fear of conflict. So then we became the ouch house. Like ouch to everybody. Like my kids would fight, I'd be like, ouch, that hurts. My my kids would be mean to my husband, I'd be like, ouch. For dad, I would tell ouch for him. My son is has mild autism, high functioning, but he would sometimes go off, and they've seen all this conflict for years. So I mean, that's all they know. So when he starts attacking somebody verbally, I'd be like, ouch, and suddenly everybody's like, the bully isn't in control anymore. You know, the bully isn't, whoever's the bully in that moment is not winning anymore. And suddenly we all just like grew a backbone and we just started saying, ouch, that hurts, you know?
Your
And
whole
we
your whole family,
all family. Hmm.
everyone, the kids were saying it now too.
Everybody. And the kids, even the friends at school, like some friends can be moody sometimes and mean, and she's like, ouch, that hurt. And suddenly it changes your inner like fear of conflict because you're not just taking it, you're not fighting back, you're just naming harm. You're just saying, you know what, that hurt. And you're standing separate. You're not melting into the conflict, if you can understand. You're standing separate. It's not absorbing you. It's not sucking you in. You're just standing back and say, ouch. But also, you're not being controlling. You're not saying you should do this or you should do that, right? So you're not being controlling. You're not being critical. Because usually I would say, you shouldn't be mean to the kids. You should say that, and then I'm really breaking him down. So ouch was just standing separate from the conflict, naming harm, not criticizing or controlling, and you stay super calm. And if somebody would continue, you can say, you can walk away if you want. You can leave. But that ouch just changed our whole family. In
Wow.
6 months, the guy who's in a bad mood is now not in control, and we're all relaxed and we're all peaceful and nobody's scared anymore. It was just
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
6 people's
Yeah.
lives totally changed. The culture of your home totally changed because
Culture
you
of our house,
were able
totally fine.
to stand and say, ouch, not just once.
Yeah.
I mean, were you shaking, Henriette, when you
I was the hard thing, people say they forget to say ouch because I think you're in fight flight. So it's the hardest thing in the world to remember to say ouch. But once you say it and it becomes automatic, it becomes easy. But that first time, that second ouch was like the bravest thing I probably ever did.
ever,
Yeah.
ever? Sounds very brave to me. It
Yeah.
sounds incredibly courageous. I can imagine your heart pounding out of your chest
Yeah.
while you're saying it. But that
Yeah.
was it. All the power. Yeah, you found your own power to really
Yeah.
honor yourself. Stay
And
with
people say do boundaries and all that, but like you said, sometimes it comes across as, aggressive. You're not going to talk to me like that. Or sometimes it comes as critical, like you should be this, you should be, so ouch is just the perfect. Some of the kids didn't like ouch, so we said that hurts. We can sometimes with those two kids didn't like the word ouch, we said that hurts. That's, for them. I don't know why. They just hated the ouch, but most of the kids loved it and responded. My autistic son is every time like, what? What hurt? What hurt? I'm like, ouch, ouch. He's like, what? Where's the hurt? Then he wants to know exactly where he hurt me. It's so sweet. And
Oh, that's
it's,
sweet.
yeah. So but then I had to play around with it because I had to learn that if I say ouch, you shouldn't talk to me like that, or ouch, you shouldn't make jokes like that, or whatever, that becomes controlling. So I had to really refine it. It's just ouch. You can repeat it and you can walk away if you want, but it's not a controlling, it's not a teaching moment. It's just like you said, Laura, it's just a vulnerability. That hurts me. That's all. That's it. And it's magic.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
so impressed with this story. I'm so impressed you
Dude.
changed the whole culture of your family
Yeah.
and changed yourself forever. No
Yeah.
more fear of
Forever.
conflict
Forever.
forever. That was in
My
that one
one,
moment, it just left.
my, my one son, he's a very easy kid and very, a good kid. And but he also can say sometimes something mean. So one time I said, because he's like, we're like close. So when he says something mean, I'm like kind of surprised, right? So one time he said, "Oh, mom, you're always late," or something, but not like that, but something that hurt. And I said, "Ouch," And the next time he said, "Mom, oh, that's gonna be an ouch." So
So he self-regulated. He
yes,
himself,
by the second time he self-regulated.
no one had to
Yeah,
say to him, "You shouldn't
no,
criticize, don't
no.
criticize me. You shouldn't talk to me like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't smile like
nothing.
that."
He just said, "Oh, oh, it's going to be an ouch. Because I think he wanted to say the basement's messy or something. He's like, oh, that's going to be an ouch.
Before we get to the part where Henriette tells you what her husband did for their 25th anniversary after 28 years of her wanting to leave, I want to tell you about something I'm excited about. It's a weekend away. It's a weekend to laugh and a weekend for self-care and self-discovery. I'm hosting Adored Wife Weekend in Anaheim, California, October 9th through the 11th. And if you've been running on empty and doing everything for everyone else, this is 3 days that are entirely unapologetically yours. Hundreds of women will be there and they get it. There's going to be an 80s dance party and a live man panel that'll rewrite everything you thought you knew about men. Women come for the girls' weekend and leave stunned by what happened to their marriage. Previous events sold out. Early bird pricing expires soon, so go to adoredwifeweekend.com and I'll save you a seat. Now, back to Henriette. So you're also, I mean, as a mom, right? I feel like that's such a
Yeah.
victory too. Like you're teaching
Oh,
your
it
son
is because
to be.
because I couldn't tell my kids, what do you do when your friends are mean to you? You can, you're shocked. Like, what do I do? And it's just like, that hurts. It's not even a big issue. And the cousins are mean because sometimes the cousins could be mean. It's like you suddenly don't know what to do. You're trying to help say somebody and they scream at you because you're not helping fast enough. That hurts because you're trying to help. So now you just say, ouch, and it's a no big deal. Yeah.
It's no big deal.
And, oh,
I
crazy.
love it. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. What a story. This is tremendous.
But then within 6 months, like within this time, ouch became so normal and conflict became such a non-issue that it almost escalated the neglect fear. Because I'm now not scared of conflict for the first time in my life. Everybody's kind of nice to each other overnight. It's crazy, Laura. I can't believe it, but no conflict after 28 years of hell. It's unreal. And suddenly I just felt this very neglect so acutely. Because when we fight, I'm okay if we're not spending time together, but now we're not fighting anymore. So it was really hard. And I felt very alone. So then I had to really work on self-care. So remember you said, and everybody almost say, oh, self-care, whatever. Yeah, we'll do self-care. But then you start realizing self-care is really it, right? It's the backbone of everything. So that was a hard lesson, Laura. Like I felt so alone and I felt so down because suddenly there's no conflict to keep me occupied. And I felt so lonely. And he's just avoiding me because years of rejecting me, really, right? Because I never really wanted to be married. I never really wanted, I was always on the fence, obviously, but I didn't leave because, you know, I thought it was just because of his temper and because the kids, I wouldn't be able to see the kids every second week. There's no way. But I knew now after I met you that it was a lack of self-care. I didn't have a sense of self. I couldn't make myself happy. But I grew up not knowing, not having any self-care. So there was nothing to go back to if I left him even. And that's a part that nobody really understands. Why don't you leave a unhappy marriage? A lot of the time it's because you never learned how to self-care. You never learned how to make yourself happy. No matter how unhappy you are, you never learned to make yourself happy. So where do you go to? You go to nothing and nothingness, right? So I had to go from, so first I tried to walk and do all those things, but one of your podcast ladies said remedial self-care. I don't know if you remember her, but she said remedial self-care. And that's what I found. I had to do self-care from the first block, which means, getting yourself out of fight flight, like literally just being present, deep breaths, putting your hand on your chest and having deep breaths. And first just kind of get back into your body. That remedial self-care is what somebody called it. And that's what I would call it. Being present in your own life, driving your own car, like you said, driving your own car, actually climbing behind your own car steering wheel. I think that was my first step because I think I wasn't even learning, oh, how do you do fun stuff? I first had to literally get in my own car, if you can say it like that, right? So for me, that was learning presence. And I had to I Googled a few things, self-care, like deep breaths, putting your hand on your chest or your arm, or like sitting in nature and really not meditating, but that kind of vein. So I had to learn really basics of self-care, and that took a long time. So first I did just putting your hand on your chest, say like this, and then deep breaths and being in the moment. And then I could start self regulating, and then out of your fight flight kind of, and you present, and then I could start walking the dogs and taking nice baths or watching my favorite movies or or reading, and then I could add on the typical self-care that you suggested as well. Yeah. And suddenly I thought like I'm in my own life and I'm making myself happy, and then I could not need that affection. I could just want it, and the moment you can give yourself that happiness, you don't need somebody to make you happy. You just want to spend time together, but you don't need anybody else to make you happy because you're making yourself happy, And that
So
took
no,
6 months of hard work.
really, 6
Yeah,
months of hard work to
hard
get
work.
to where you felt
Yeah,
like you could make yourself happy. You could
yeah,
had the power
yeah.
to.
Yeah, because remember, I was like in the strict religion, no sports, no hobbies, just studying, and then meeting him early. I was 17, right? I never learned to make myself happy.
Wow.
And that's when I joined Ridiculously Happy Wife. And I only had one call with somebody, and that was about self-care. And she, and and you know, so it was life-changing. It was the most beautiful hour that, the Ridiculous Happy Wife interview I had, and it was just beautiful. And then obviously I listened in almost 4 times a day to other ladies, and just beautiful, and so that's where that came in. Like that 6 months of learning to make myself happy, I joined almost all the calls for a few months there, and it was beautiful. Yep.
Wow. That is some commitment. There's a lot of calls. That was your whole
Yeah.
lifestyle. Wow.
Yeah.
You're all those calls.
Yeah. So that was the self-care that I learned. And that was huge. And that's something that you miss because you think, yeah, right, I'll go for walks.
Right.
But then,
Right.
yeah. So the next one, I'll see what I learned next. So, and then obviously, just to say it like obviously with the ouch too, is learning to stay on your own page. That was huge because that is one of the biggest. So you've got self-care, and the next one is staying on your own page, right? It's skill. It's like learning what is your page and what's somebody else's page. What they say, their relationships, their jokes, their how much that that's all their page. Their relationship, my husband's relationship with his kids, that's his page. I can say ouch, but the rest is up to him. And I had to learn that. And trust me, if I don't do that, things go back quickly, go downhill quickly. So I had to learn staying on my own page. And then I learned respect. Like the moment I learned one thing, the next thing came up. I tell you, Laura, it was terrible. So respect. The main thing is no control. Not how he talks to the kids, not how much time he spends with us. And at first, with self-care, I stopped worrying about him spending time with us. I just enjoyed myself. And then suddenly here he is. He wants to join in,
You're
because we're laughing. Usually I'd be nervous and sad because he's on his computer. Now I'm like laughing, enjoying my time with the kids. And before you know it, here he is. And he's sitting here and he doesn't want to miss a second. Can you imagine that? From,
no, I
yeah.
cannot. I
And
cannot. This is the
yeah.
guy that you felt so neglected.
Yeah.
It's
Just
lonely.
making myself happy and then being on my own page. And suddenly he just doesn't want to miss a second with the kids. And then also the staying on my own page, the moment I stopped telling him what to do, he figured out like he quickly figured out he can't talk to the kids like that and them being close. So he just and another thing is he started listening to your podcast while we on road trips. And that was probably not a good idea because he held me to a high standard. And that I think that was unfair, because he'd be like, oh, what would Laura Doyle say about that? I should have done that. But it changed him how he dealt with our son because our autistic son, is hard to deal with. And he was hard on him and critical. And suddenly with your podcast, he listened to probably 100 of them.
Oh,
He like cried and he started using the skills with our kids and not with me, but with the kids. And it was just amazing how he started using self-fulfilling like kids fulfilling prophecies, starting faith over fear with them, and starting respecting them, stop controlling them and stop criticizing them,
mm.
and and he just used those skills with the kids. So he just started really believing in these intimacy skills and his relationship with the kids just unbelievable. I would say they're almost closer than me. Like he's just they're so close now, and he's so positive with them, and so patient.
Oh, Henriette, this is
Since I
amazing.
since I stepped
It
back.
melted you to see him
Mm,
so tender because you were trying to get him to not criticize them.
yeah, yeah,
You were trying to get him to not be so harsh, and now here
yeah,
he is,
yeah,
like, doing all these things to create this
yeah.
connection with them.
And so many podcast ladies said that the moment they stop trying to control how they talk to the kids, they repair themselves. Because if he realized, oh, I was so mean to the kids, and then and nobody is talking to him about it, he then feels it acutely, and he goes back and immediately repairs it with them, and then their relationship grew immediately, almost overnight. So it was just me having to step back, but still say ouch, because that is important, to not just take somebody's, just say ouch, but then let him figure it out.
Wow, it sounds like
Right.
a miracle to
Yeah.
witness that kind of
Yeah.
transformation with him and your
So the
kids.
other thing about respect is what you said, is faith over fear. Now that is so important, because not thinking the best of somebody is actually disrespectful. And that is a huge commitment. So to decide to think the best of somebody, that is respect. That's basic respect, is to think the best of somebody. And now that changed my life, because in the past I would do everything. And then if I ask him for one little thing, he'd say no. And I'd just be devastated. But now I told myself, you know what? He knows he's tired. He knows how much he's worked. He knows his limits. So I respect completely when he says no, he can't help me. And the moment he felt that energy, he just immediately started helping. So basically, this ties into, obviously, I would love, right? But it's not just I would love. It's also just like you said one time, you said you can ask somebody something. You don't have to say I would love all the time. But so it just ties into, when I ask, I respect that there's no control. There's no control on timeline. There's no control on how he should do it. There's no control of if he should do it. That's all within his control. And if he says no, I think the best of him. And I said, he's tired. He knows his limits. He knows when, and I rest. I go rest and self care and watch TikTok, whatever, And then when I have energy, I go do it, because that's important to me. It doesn't have to be as important to him. That's what I want. And if he's too tired, he knows his limits, and I trust that he knows himself. So the moment I didn't expect any outcome, I would keep on asking. And asking is also, so if you're scared, you don't ask. But when you don't expect an outcome because you respect somebody's autonomy, suddenly you can ask as much as you want, and that release you as well, because you can ask. And if he says no, that's totally fine, but you don't hold it in, and that's even life changing, to ask whatever you want. Could you help me clean the kitchen? No, I'm too tired. Okay. At least I asked, and now he's the one cleaning the kitchen. He's the one cooking. He's the one driving the kids around. This is a man that wouldn't even pass me a glass of water. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're kidding, and now he
No.
cleans up and makes dinner and drives the kids. So, okay, so you being able to ask, you took away the conflict when you
Yeah,
were before you would say, "Would you, pass me a glass of water?" And he wouldn't
yeah.
do it, and
I'd
then
be
there would
sad.
be and they'd
I'd
be
be sad.
sad. There'd
There'd
be
be a
punishment.
consequence. I'd be sad, and the sadness is the consequence. You know what I mean? Like, there'd be an expectation, there'd be a disappointment, right? Because
Yes,
I always did everything. So I thought if I asked something small, I'd be so sad when he says no to even that.
because it
But
shows
then
you're
I
not
realized,
important or yeah, he doesn't
yeah,
care. Yeah.
yeah, I already do everything else. But then I realized, and that was the hardest day of my life, I realized even if I do everything else, when I ask him, there should be a yes or a no. If there's not a yes or a no, okay. If a yes or a no isn't okay, that's a demand. That's not a
Yeah.
request. That's a demand.
Mm.
So I had to ask without expectation, and then suddenly he just wanted to do everything, and he does. I'm not even kidding you. He does everything. Sometimes, like you said, what do I do? I feel bad. I don't do anything. Imagine I said sometimes I think this house is clean and I did nothing. Like, I can't believe it. He's cooking food now. He's taking the kids to art. He cleaned the mop every day. I mop, and then I'm like, can you clean the mop? Oh yeah, that's a big job. Like, he just does everything I ask before I even check on it. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow. It is
Yeah.
unbelievable, and I love how you're such a scientist, right? And you're in the medical field, so maybe that has to do with it, but you're drawing the dots so carefully, right? Between I said, "Ouch," and then all of a sudden the bully didn't have the power, or
Yeah.
I stopped making demands, and all of a sudden his natural desire to
Yeah.
be supportive and help
Yeah.
you
Yeah. He
contribute.
told me one day I asked him, could you clean the kitchen? He said, no, I'm too tired. I was like, okay. And then he said he was standing in the kitchen and he said, I actually want a clean kitchen. And it was the first time he had the freedom to think for what does he want, you know? And he decided, oh, okay, I actually want the kitchen to be clean as well. Yeah. It was the first time he thought that. So
Wow.
they, yeah. So I just
And
can't.
so he knew what you were doing when you were practicing those skills too, as you were doing these experiments. He already knew because
Maybe not in detail. Like he listened to all the podcasts, and those ladies are just, the inner growth that they have is sometimes drives you to tears, you know? So he didn't know all the detail, but yeah, he knew. But yeah, I don't think he could say like ask without expectation. Yeah, he does know that. But I think in the moment he wouldn't realize how much work I put in to not have any expectation, and to really let go of any expectation and just to trust that he will do it if he can. And if he can't, and I also had to take being on my own page. You know what's being on my own page is to realize that some things are important to me and it's not to him, and that's okay. And that's a hard, I don't know how many people can accept that, but if he doesn't care to have a clean house, then that he may not be that important to him to help. And if he does help, it's his decision to help me because I maybe like it more than him. So
yeah, you
just
might
really
make him
accept that he has
happy.
different priorities.
Yeah, yeah. So, and how did you get yourself to do that? Because that is hard to do. How
I
did you
think
make Yeah.
actually the surrendered wife was, I think that's the one thing, because it was a while ago that I sat one day, he wouldn't help us. Me and the kids cleaned the house every Sunday. He would not help. He would just be on his computer. He wouldn't lift a finger. And that's sad. Like all of us are working and he's just sitting on his computer. And one day I asked him, do you think you can help us clean the house? And he just said, no, I'm tired. And I just felt so sad. And I was sitting in the car and I try to rack my brain. Like, why does other women have husbands that help them? And why don't we have? Because it's been three generations that I know of. And I suddenly realized that I'm not giving him an option. Obviously he's not helping me. So he's having an option of not helping me. But in my heart, I'm not giving him an option to say no. Because I think that it would be reasonable to say yes. And it probably will be reasonable to say yes. But the fact that he doesn't have an option without me being disappointed, really emotionally, I'm not giving him an option. And from that day, I just decided to ask and accept a yes or a no.
So he
Yeah.
was defending his autonomy in
Yeah.
that he was never considering the request even.
No,
He
not
was just
even.
saying,
Zero
"I
seconds.
protect my autonomy,
Yes,
and therefore I
exactly.
am a no."
Yeah.
Because you
And it's so unreasonable, but he just was protecting his autonomy,
Wow.
and that was just so important to him.
Oh, it's just human nature, I think,
Yeah, it
sometimes.
is. It
But
is. It
to
really is.
understand, like, I think
The next
well,
one that came up then was thank you. So you talk a lot about being thankful, and I always thought, yeah, I'm very thankful. I say thank you all the time. But really, what changed my life with thank you is to exchange State of the Unions with thank you. Because every time I wanted to talk about the relationship, it would blow up in a fight every time. So I follow your direction completely. No State of the Unions, no talking about the relationship. But what do I do then with those emotions? And I realized that I can turn those negativity around in a second if I say thank you to the very thing I'm lacking. Because say you are lacking, say, affection, he is still hugging you lots. He's still doing all those things. So you can already say thank you for so much. Like say you want more hugs. You're already getting a lot of hugs, but you want maybe more. So you can already say thank you for what you're getting, right? And then immediately you feel appreciated. You're almost, there's a self-fulfilling, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy saying thank you because you're immediately showing him, you're focusing on what you're saying thank you for the very thing you want more of, right? And even if you feel a lack, there's so much already to say thank you for. And then immediately he feels good about it and he gives you more of it. So it was just unbelievable.
Wow.
I
So,
never
so
thought thank you would be such a big deal to me.
and you started thanking him for, so you wanted him to be
Like,
more affectionate, and then you
yeah,
said, thank you
yeah.
for the times that you hug me.
I know. I said, thanks for hugging me so much. You're so amazing. I love
Oh,
it. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. And you're like, here's another one. Let's
Yeah.
do that more. Okay.
And especially, when you're like constantly talking about the relationship and it just spirals into negativity and you don't know how to stop it because every time you start talking, it goes back to that.
Yeah.
And then, thank you, stop that for me. So say he said, yeah, I know we were talking about that. I'm like, well, thank you for talking to me about that. And thank you for all the hugs. And, you just immediately stop that state of the union that you kind of can't get out of with a thank you. And he's just like, oh, okay, oh no, she's happy. She's okay. And then immediately he stops talking about the relationship because he thinks you want to, right? And then, so thank you just was like a magical token almost. Like I can get out of any difficult conversations that's going to lead nowhere. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
Um, with just a thank you. And it was just magic.
You have a superpower. You have several superpowers, actually.
Hmm.
I love it.
Every one that you said is a superpower.
Yeah. Very good.
And
Yeah.
just like you think the one, then you get the next one. So receiving was very hard for me because, um, firstly, I guess receiving, say somebody clean for you, whatever you want it maybe done now, and he does it tomorrow. Like, say you want the dishes washed, that's hard. I'm not a very picky person. So I couldn't really relate to you. I'm not that typical controlling wife in the sense that I want the towels folded just like that, or I don't care. Like our house is basically a mess. But I am very controlling, I realize, because I want him to talk to the kids just so, and I want him to always be nice. And, so there's lots of stuff I am controlling, but I couldn't relate to that type of stuff. But yes, even for me, if I ask him to do something and he forgets for a whole day, that's still hard, right? So I had to really let go of the timeline. And I think I can remind him one time. I can say, hey, can you still wash the dishes? He's like, yeah, I'll do it later. That's okay. Then I let it go, but it's on his timeline. So receiving has to be no control of how they do it or when they do it. And then you can receive. But that's not easy. You got to really work on that.
No, that sounds hard. It sounds, I
Yeah.
don't even like that, actually.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I don't want to have to wait a whole day.
But when I accept that too, it seems to just happen easier too. It's almost like you forget about it when you really let go of that control, And before you see it, he doesn't want to wash the dishes. But if you're worried about it, then you kind of notice every
Yeah.
minute, right? So it's
Yeah.
not that hard once you do it. The other thing with receiving is I can't. I can't to me is a big part of receiving because if somebody's giving you something you don't want, I can't is part of receiving. And you actually say that in the book, As Good as It Gets. Um, I can't. If somebody give you something that you don't want, you just say, I can't. It's like a simple example. Say he says, do you want a cookie? Here, take a bite of my cookie. And you're really full.
Yeah.
You don't have to receive that. You can just say, I can't, because that's a boundary without criticism. And your body. And that's important part of receiving is knowing that you can say, I can't. And suddenly that takes the stress off receiving. Because
Yeah.
that receiving was very, very hard because you felt like you had to take whatever somebody's giving to you. And sometimes that's a boundary cross. So saying I can't is hand in hand with receiving.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
no control and boundaries. So you
Yes.
have to give up control, but you don't have to give up your boundaries when you receive.
So, Henriette, were you using boundaries? Or, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like, I can't is kind of a boundary, really,
Yeah.
in the traditional
Yeah.
sense. But so you were using boundaries before the skills, it sounds like.
No, I didn't use boundaries because boundaries would explode everything. So if
Okay.
I say, you're not going to talk to me like that, or even if I say, no, I can't have another bite, he'd just keep going, no, have a bite. It's so yummy. Yeah, he would just never take my boundaries. Or he would just be mad. He'd be like, oh, you're so harsh. Why would you be so harsh? If I say, you're not going to talk to me like that. So
Okay.
my
Yeah.
boundaries never worked. And that makes you so powerless, right? Because you're like,
Yes.
if I do a boundary, I either get withdrawal or I get conflict. Like you
Conflict.
can't win.
Yeah. No, you
But the
can't.
funniest thing is, I can't is magic. Because for the first time ever, he accepted that. I remember the very day we were on the holiday and he said, hey, try this, try this, try this. And I was so full, I couldn't. And I said, I can't. And he said, okay. and he kept on eating his food. It was the first time in 28 years that he took a boundary. It was like absolute heaven. I was like, I just never happened to me before. I can't. It's so powerful. Because again, it's
Wow.
not critical. You're not being critical towards that person. You're just
Yeah.
saying, I can't. My body and I can't.
Just
And
totally
he
off
is,
my feet.
he accepts it. Like, who would have ever known? You know, he's like, oh, you can't. Oh, okay.
Must have made your head explode when you got.
Explode. Absolute explode.
I love it. It's so fun. I love that you have these
Yeah.
specific stories of the
Yeah.
time you said it and the reaction that you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one for
Okay.
me was vulnerability. So ouch is part of vulnerability, and I already told you it changed my life, but it has to go with no control. So it's just ouch. It's not ouch. You shouldn't be talk like that. It's just ouch. So that's important. And then I miss you. You said I miss you as part of vulnerability. And I found I didn't want to say I want affection or I miss you because he would, I don't want him to withdraw because you say don't ask for PI and all that stuff. But I found that self-silencing hurt more. So I wouldn't ask for anything specific because, affection isn't goal related. But I will ask for, I miss you. I want to spend time with you. And he can say yes or no. And there's no disappointment, but I do ask for time together. I struggled with that for 6 months, Laura. I was like, do I listen to Laura and not ask for any PI? Or do and self-silence, or do I ask and then you withdraw? So I couldn't figure it out because I would ask, then he would withdraw. I would not ask. I would get sad and feel like I'm self-silencing. I'm not saying my truth. I'm being
Right.
powerless. So I
Yeah.
figured it out. You can say, like, basically what you're saying. You can say, I miss you and I want to spend time with you, but there's no goal to it. It doesn't have to be anything specific. And it also, if he says no, he can't, it's 100% okay. There's asking without expectation. And that just works magic because I can't just be quiet and wait on for him because my whole past was kind of powerless and not asking for what you need. So for me, asking for time together release me of that sadness and that burden. Yeah, but I don't ask anything specific, and it's on his timeline. And it's like whenever he can, and if he can't, he doesn't have time, then that's 100% fine because I don't need him to make me happy. I just want to spend time with him. So it almost stacked all those building blocks. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that explanation. It's a good example of you being the expert on your own life, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
realizing, like, for me,
Yeah.
it's more painful.
Yeah.
It's not self-honoring to not say,
Yeah.
I miss you. I would love to spend time with you, which
Yeah.
is it's a very skilled way of
Very
saying,
hard. Yeah. Because I definitely did push him away when I asked, in a way that maybe expect an outcome or maybe felt disappointed when he said no. I had to really be able to make myself happy. I had to really respect and give up any control. And and no goal, like, yes, no outcome related. It's just for me, like you said, it's more painful to be self-silence was the biggest pain. So for
yeah,
me, just saying it, like asking to clean the kitchen, I never did because I was scared of his reaction. Now I can ask because I can take a yes or a no, and it's fine. Same with intimacy. If I not asking is more painful, so I ask whenever I want, and if he says yes or no, that's 100% fine. But even just the act of asking for what I would love is so healing.
yeah, it does. You sound very empowered.
Yeah.
You're honoring
Yeah.
Henriette. You're
Yes.
not just pushing anything down.
Exactly.
And,
And that's
and
what I thought. Because I thought, what am I doing with this intimacy answer? I can't, 6 months. I'm like, should I ask? Should I not ask? I'm bouncing between these two extremes. And then I realized suddenly it's empowered wife. So if I feel unempowered not asking for time together, then I'm gonna ask for time together, but I'm just gonna make sure that I give up control. I'm okay with yes and no. And I don't ask for PI because so I think you're right there because intimacy isn't goal related. So I think you're correct in saying don't ask for anything specific, but definitely ask for what you would love. And for me, that includes affection.
yes. Well, and that makes sense. Is your relationship more affectionate anyway? I bet you're more
Yeah,
magnetic, is what I'm thinking.
absolutely. The more, you know, the first day I did your stuff, he immediately wanted to spend time with me. The first day. Can you imagine that? Within one day, I just it was unbelievable. I just self-cared. I, was on my own page. And without before I know it, he was like, sitting
Like,
next
huh?
to me wanting to hold my hand. Yeah, exactly. One day. It's unreal.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah,
So on the times when you're saying, "I miss you, and can we spend time together?" It's, like, it sounds like it's logistical too, right?
yeah,
It's not that you are feeling, like, neglected or abandoned.
yeah,
It's more like he's working or you're working
yeah,
or whatever, right? Like, there's just kind of
exactly.
a
So
missing.
it is logistical, and it's also like knowing he wants to make me happy, believing the best in him, and like knowing that he's maybe just tired or busy, he's working a lot, so he definitely wants to make me happy. And I grew up very differently. My mom was very loving, and his parents don't hug, so that's also different. And I grew up without a dad, so I need a lot of affection. My parents were divorced when I was 2. And so for me, I grew up with a lot of affection, but without a dad. And he grew up with no affection, but both parents. So it's hard to get those two together, you know?
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
love that you're just focusing on what feels right for Henriette, which is you would like a
Yeah.
lot of affection.
Yeah.
And now you've become so much more magnetic, but you
Yeah.
also, um, can advocate for yourself. You can honor
Yeah.
yourself,
Yes,
uh,
exactly. Because that
where
was my biggest thing. From I was a child, I never knew how to advocate for myself, and that's where ouch comes in, and asking for what I need comes in,
yeah, and I can't, and yeah,
and I can't exactly.
yeah, yeah. Well,
And then
tremendous.
also the one more vulnerability I added to it was the vulnerability of belonging, because I never wanted to be married to him because of the conflict, and I never allowed myself to want to belong to him, because I always wanted to divorce. Um, and then one day I realized I'm going to allow myself to belong. Because for myself, for a treat to myself, you know what I mean? I'm gonna not be on the fence anymore. I'm gonna belong to him, and we're gonna belong to each other. And that may change in the future. That's okay. For now, I am belonging to it. I'm gonna let us belong to each other. I'm gonna give myself that treat of being vulnerable and having that belonging that I never felt because I was so scared of conflict, that I never allowed myself to feel. And that was a big burden for me to carry.
Yeah. It's like when
Yeah.
I changed my name to my husband's name, finally
Hmm.
after 9 years, yeah,
Yeah.
I give myself belonging. So,
Yeah.
and how did you do it? Like, how did you was that just a mental thing for you to
Yes.
say, "Okay."
One day I just decided I never allowed myself to belong to anybody because I'm so, except like my mom is a very kind person. Like, you know what I mean? Like she was also bullied by her husbands or whatever, but I never belonged to anybody because except my mom and me, but because I'm scared of them. I'm scared of conflict. I'm scared for temper, all that. And then one day I just said, you know what? Who's missing out here by being on the fence? I'm missing out, and I just one day think like I'm gonna belong to him, and I'm just gonna be connected to him, and I just want that. I want that for myself, and that just healed such a little bit of an emptiness that I had in my life, not in myself, but the emptiness was more like in the structure of my life,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was just so nice.
And how did he respond to that?
I think that was more like not saying I want a divorce anymore, just saying, because
Yeah.
every time we fight, I'm like, no, we have to, this is not working, and that makes him very sad because he never wanted to divorce, but I always wanted to, because I never wanted to be married. I hated conflict in my life, and just not saying that is already to him. That's what he needs. He wants that. Somebody who wants to belong to him, that wants to belong together. So for him, that's a big deal. But for me, I never realized that I'm missing out so much. I'm missing out on that basic human need to belong, you know?
This is
Yeah.
your tribe. He's
Mhm.
your tribe. And
Yeah.
and so, by so you did you say to him, "I'm not gonna say we should divorce anymore," or you just stopped saying it,
So
or
I just stopped saying it because you don't want to make promises and then we get upset, you say it again. But
or
it was more for me because often I would just feel kind of sad. I'd miss my kids say, or you know what I mean? And then I was like, no, you know what? I belong. Like I never had a dad, and I never could belong to him. And suddenly I realized, no, I do belong. And then you just feel so settled, you just feel so, so it's such a squishy feeling to belong.
so after 28 years, you choose your husband.
Yeah, I
Wow.
did. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Amazing. Like,
it is.
okay,
It was
that's
like for me. It
yeah,
was
me
for me,
too.
not for him, because he always wanted me to stop saying I want a divorce, but I was really for me. I got that benefit of that. I got that happiness, and I didn't even know that I was suffering from that. You
Right.
know?
Right. In fact, it probably felt like safety
Yeah.
to be able to
Exactly.
keep that door open that you could
Yes.
divorce. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted
Yeah.
to have that option available
Yes.
to me. Um, and you're right, there's so much more on the other side of
Yeah.
like you belong.
Just- Yeah.
So so, um, so what is your marriage like now?
Well, first I lost that fear of conflict, so I just say ouch, and it stops. So there's no more conflict. And secondly, I just started saying, like, because you said Ben wants to make you happy, and you're like, oh, there's no way. Like, this guy wouldn't even pass me a glass of water. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way he cares about my happiness. But then to see that his only goal in life is to make me happy. If I can just take out the control or the expectation or the fear, if I can just, if I can just give that first step. So now it's like, whatever I want, I can just ask him and he'll make it happen if he wants. He immediately bought me beautiful earrings. He booked us a 25-year anniversary. I always book the holidays. He booked the holiday, and we had the most magical time. We had the most beautiful 25-year anniversary, and on we didn't fight once. It was magical. He bought me these earrings. And then on the way back on the airport was the only time he got really stressed, and he said, why do you pack so much? Now we have all this luggage. And I just looked at him and said, ouch. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just stressed out. And it was no big deal. In the past, we would have gotten home angry, like stressed and fighting because, he's taking out his stress on me. I just said, ouch. I even say ouchie sometimes, ouchie, because it's no big deal anymore, right? Like if he's stressed, yeah, it's ouchie. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to take it out on you." And we came home just so happy and so in love, and it was just amazing. And like he and the kids are so close. It's unbelievable. He's just the best dad. He won't even think about breaking them down. He always thought they were spoiled. I'm spoiling them, all that stuff. He's like, he gives them much more than I ever would. You know what I mean? Like, it's just amazing. And he cleans, he cooks. He didn't have confidence in cooking. So we did get that box, you get that, so you get step-by-step instructions. Now it's his job. He cooks every day,
Oh my
and like,
gosh. You don't cook.
yeah.
What about on
And the one
Sundays? What about
the
on
one
Sundays?
big what's that?
Sundays, cleaning the house on
Oh,
Sundays?
yeah, we stopped doing that because the kids were teenagers. Suddenly they wouldn't help me anymore when they were teenagers. So now it's just I would just ask him, like, say, do you want, can you vacuum for me? He's like, sure. Or can you clean the mop after I mop? Or can you know what I mean? Like, I just ask him. I just like, when can we clean the room together? He's like, "Oh, maybe tomorrow." I'm like, okay. Like, that's a guy who would be mad at me for even asking. You know what I mean? He just, let's ask, when can you do that with you? And he doesn't like cleaning bathrooms. That's okay. He can do the vacuuming. Imagine I have a life where I can, in the past, I couldn't give him to-do list because he would see it as control.
Sure, sure.
Now it's like, here's your to-do list. And if he says no, okay. He knows. I expect no, it's his decision. It's his life. And
Wow.
he's like, yeah. I said, yes, did you do everything on your list? He said, oh yeah, I did it all by the morning. I'm like, it's unbelievable. Even yesterday, we got a census in the mail. Now I'm the admin person, and I hate that. And I had to do the finances, everything. I gave him the census. I'm like, Base, you got to do that tomorrow. He's like, because remember, I accept a yes or a no, right? So I just said, hey, you got to do that tomorrow if you have the time. He's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And he just did. That's something he would never do. That type of admin. And with the taxes, I always had to do it. So I said, I'm not happy doing the taxes by myself. I would love for you to do this part because it's the hardest part. And he's like, okay, yeah. He's doing the hardest part now, adding up all the millions of stuff or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and I told him, I said, I don't want to do the finances anymore, but the only thing I really have to do is pay the energy bill or whatever, because everything else is automatic. So he set it up for me to get it automatic. He did that. And now nobody has to do the finances, basically.
That's great. That is great.
Everything's automatic, so it's no problem. So
Oh,
yeah. And the one big thing is he didn't want me to travel without him, but we
mhm.
always fought on travel. So because I never said on my page when we travel, I always want to protect the kids, and I would, so just recently I said, you know what? I'm gonna discuss with you if I can travel with friends, and if you're really not okay with it, like if you don't have time or you can't look after the kid, I totally accept yes or a no. Again, ask without expectation, not as permission, but like discuss it with him because I always fought with him about it. Like I want to travel with my friends, and he's like, you always want to travel without me. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna stop this. I saw it as self-care, so I'm gonna say I'm gonna travel with my friends, but he just wasn't happy with it. So I said, I'm gonna see it as I would love. So I said, I would love to travel with my friends, but I will take a yes or a no. And that means like maybe that he doesn't have, logistical stuff, right? It's not asking permission. And the moment I said that, he said, you know what? I I realized that it's just my insecurity, that you don't want me there. Actually, I want you to be happy and I want you to travel with your friends. So you just travel whenever you want, wherever you want. He just said, like, after 28 years of fighting for my freedom, you know what I mean? He just said,
Unbelievable.
and then he said, why don't you take your cousin and go to Vegas? Why don't you take your cousin and go to, I'm like, I'm just texting my cousin. My husband said, let's go to Vegas. Like, I had to fight for
Aw.
every trip with, tooth and nail. Now
So
he's
you're
suggesting,
like, you're out of prison now.
yeah,
You're free to
exactly.
roam about the world
Yeah,
freely. So, this is amazing. Like,
it is.
28 years of and then
How?
it just seemed very yeah, it sounds
It's
like
been since July last year. I listened to your first podcast July last year. So it's been almost a year now. And trust me, every day was hard work. Every day I've been working on these skills. And just
like
as soon as you understand one, because you said to somebody it's layered, right? So just as you understand the one, the next one comes up. It's just amazing. It's unreal.
toughest part, yes.
Yeah,
No, I feel like after all these years, I still go, "Oh, okay." I get
exactly.
new aha,
Exactly.
new insights
Yeah.
about it. So, has your husband, I mean, he knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
Has he I feel like I want him to acknowledge you, Henriette.
Yeah.
I want him to
I
say
think he we after ouch, we were doing great, but then I had to work on my um self-care, and then I had to work on staying on my own page because the moment I started being back on his page about the kids, things deteriorated. Then I had to work on respect, like really let go of control, and then I had to work on thank you came up, and then I'm like, okay, I can, so everything is kind of going, but it's just unbelievable how our lives have changed. Another thing I did was like, sorry for being so disrespectful. I remember the one day he was on his phone while we were talking with the kids. And I said, oh, do you want to put your phone away so we can chat with the kids? And he was devastated. Like any control really. I mean, obviously, I think his dad must have been very controlling, but any control, he just was devastated. He felt like a scolded kid, and he walked to the room and I knew he was really upset. And I said, I'm really sorry for being disrespectful for being controlling in how you spend your time with the kids and like being on your phone. And he said, I was actually looking up a joke I wanted to show them, and I felt so bad. And then, but I said, sorry for being for being controlling. And he was so relieved. He just felt so relieved. He said, oh, thank you so much. Because he would have been quiet the whole weekend, probably not talk to me the whole weekend, just because I told him to put away his phone, so that really saved me. But I find that instead of saying sorry for being disrespectful, for being controlling or critical, it's much better to just not be controlling or critical. Because he does get he's like, oh, okay, you said sorry already and you're doing it again. So I do find like if I say all the time, sorry for being disrespectful, he's like, he lost a little faith in it if I kept on. It was very important for me to learn to be on my own page instead of just, well,
well, Henriette, we're all just mere mortal women, right?
I
I'm not
know,
perfect either.
I know.
We all have to have some grace.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I hear
yeah,
you're very devoted to
yeah,
your own development in this
yeah,
area.
yeah.
and committed to creating that emotional safety.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So I just wrote down all the cheat phrases that's literally saved my life. So the one obviously is I can't. That's life saving. I hear you. So if we have State of the Unions and he starts ranting, I'm like, I hear you. That's life changing. Like I hear you. You don't say yes or no, but you listen. Like, and I also love the way you listen. Like, you listen. You learn to listen, and that's the skill that really is going to save you at the end of the day. Is to listen. Whatever you think, obviously, it's about his life. Whatever you think, if you want to work more or less, or when you want to take holiday, or whatever you think, ask without expecting. That's life changing. Even if you did everything, you can't ask with expecting because he has his own priorities, he has his own values, he has his own autonomy. You have to ask without expecting. And then suddenly he starts helping and starts, trust that he knows his priorities, he knows his capacity. Like he's a separate being, right? Um, and then if he says no and you're really tired, you better go rest. That dishes, like you said, the dishes doesn't have to get washed now, whatever. You go rest. You go lie on the couch, scroll for as long as it takes, and do it when you have energy. And that's on your page. When do you have energy to do something you want to do? So that duct tape is very important, but not in a way where you just quiet when somebody screams at you. Duct tape is important for me for no State of the Unions. That's duct tape. I'm not going to start talking about how the relationship should improve or whatever. Duct tape. No criticism, no control. That is where duct tape comes in. And also no seeking validation. If you think you want to ask, oh, you really hurt me, can I tell you again when you hurt me 10 years ago, whatever. Duct tape that. There's no need for that. You validate yourself. You just say what you love. You say what you can't. You say, whatever you want, but you don't. Duct tape for me is not State of the Unions, no control, no criticism.
what do you do though if you still are feeling resentful about something that he said 10 years ago?
Well, I think that's a lot of work with the self-care, like really validating yourself. I think that's one of the main things we need to grow in with self-care is because if I'm sure he said sorry, but you always want to get him to fully understand, but that's not necessary. That's where self-care comes in. You understand,
Yeah.
and then that now you will say I can't, or now you will say I would really love this, or you have the skills now to not maybe feel that hurt by something that hurt you so much in the
So we become more resilient
yeah.
and more confident, it sounds like.
Yeah, so you know why that hurt and you know what to do now. So you don't really need to talk about it. You can validate yourself. It was really painful. I'm sure he has said sorry because lots of women said they need again and again validation, right? But you can let it go and validate yourself. That's
Yeah.
self-care. That's the
Yeah.
hard work of self-care.
Yeah. Love it. I
Yeah.
love it, Henriette. Yeah. Great.
Self-care is probably the hardest work, okay? And then thank you as a spouse fulfilling prophecy. Thank you for everything. Like if you want him to clean more, thank you for packing away or, wiping the crumb off the table, like whatever he has done. And then I would love no self-silencing, but no expectation. I would love this. I would love that. You just keep going. Like you also say, you just say everything you would love. Yeah. And ouch removes that fear of control. So now he, like I said, is helping with the kids, is cleaning, he's booking holidays. We don't ever talk about the relationship. Ouch, there's no more sadness after fights. I
Wow.
thank him all the day. We have such good days, lots of intimacy. But if tomorrow I'm not on my page, it'll go back down to where it was.
With great power comes great responsibility. So
Exactly.
man, huh?
Yeah.
So
But also, I wanted to say to you that from July last year, I started seeing the Laura Doyle kids that they talk about. For the first time, our kids didn't have that thick atmosphere in the house. They didn't have a sad mom. They didn't have a mad dad, or angry dad. And I thought, wow, maybe my kids can be Laura Doyle kids. Kids with a happy home, something they've never had. And that's very hard for immigrant kids, to come home and you don't have grandparents or any support. You just have an unhappy home. And that's hard.
yeah.
So now they can be Laura Doyle kids with happy homes and also knowing how to make their how to choose good relationships or how to have a good relationship. We didn't know. They would have been in exactly the same spot as I was
You
if
changed
it
the
wasn't for them.
legacy. You changed the legacy.
Yes.
You have all sons? You have all boys?
Yeah, 2 boys, and they don't really wanna talk emotional stuff like the girls, but they know ouch, and they know they can just they can see I'm present. I'm not anxiously walking on eggshells. I'm there, and they just it just changed everything with and it also changed their relationship. They can say ouch to each other. They not there's that fear of conflict is just gone with them. It's just
Wow.
yeah.
It must make you just feel like such a proud mama
Yeah.
to see that
Yeah.
you're giving that to your kids. I'm sure there's nothing you'd want more than
Yeah.
to give them that.
And staying on my own page was so big because say we're going for a restaurant and they're making jokes or making inappropriate comments, like, talking about, teenage kids or whatever. I I will say, but for the most part, I'll just sit back, and just watch and just like be on my page. And then I can say ouch or I can say, oh, but not constantly being on everybody's page. And that has made family gatherings so much more enjoyable, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is great. That seems like a wisdom bomb right there.
Yeah.
Like, they might be saying something inappropriate. You can just listen. You're just on your page or yeah, you can
Just
they
so
can do
it
that.
just changes that reactiveness, right? Maybe you'll say something, but just immediately you're just looking, you're just watching. Maybe they'll sort it out themselves, or it's just being on your own page just changes that whole atmosphere. It's just unbelievable because everybody's more relaxed. Everybody is just present, and then you can kind of calmly sort it out instead of being on everybody's page and trying to make sure everybody's nice and everybody's appropriate and everybody's this and that. And I was the big problem, because I actually went away for a week when I was fighting about this. I said, I want to go visit my mom, and I did. It was amazing. And another thing, I always got along with my mom, but now I can do it even so much better, right? Because I know how to listen. I know how to ask for what I want. Because even with my mom, I would be scared to ask because maybe she'd make her sad or maybe she'd be stressed. Now I say, oh, mom, I would love to spend, and let's go for this or that. And there's just no stress, Or if I say, "Oh, mom, could you please, not put my wet towels, in my suitcase or whatever," and then she's like, "Oh, sure." In the past, I would keep that in. For what? For no reason. She doesn't even have a temper, but that's just how and then it'll build up. So now we had an amazing week, the best week, just a lovely week together. And when I found home, oh my goodness, everybody's having a ball. They're going to restaurants. My husband and the kids are just living it up. So then I'm like, am I the problem? Because I couldn't stay on my own page, you know?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Not,
Now you can.
not anymore.
Like,
I'm sure all the hard work we've put in, but it was just a big eye opening from if you're on everybody's page, you really up the stress, you up the anxiety in everybody. And when I was away for a week and they were doing so good and so supportive of each other and so having so much fun together, I can really let go. I can be like, you know what? He's an amazing dad. I can have faith over fear and I can let him figure it out with the kid. Because my daughter even scratched his car per accidentally. And he said he got upset and then he's like, they worked it out. Oh, okay. That made me a little upset, but I know you didn't mean to. Like I didn't need to be there. They did it all themselves.
wow. I think I might
Yeah.
be a little upset about that. I'd be like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Don't they
Exactly. It
all
was a brand new car too. And they sorted it out. Not one fight while I was away. And I was almost away for 8, 9 days.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I have no more excuse to be on everybody's page.
This is very humble of you. This
Yeah,
is very
it is.
powerful and very
Yeah,
humble and,
yeah,
almost kinda unbelievable in a way because
yeah,
you're like, there's no ego there with you.
yeah,
You've put that aside and
yeah,
value this peace
yeah.
that your family's enjoying even more.
But my son, one time when I was reading before you, I read all the other books. My son said, "You know what, mom? All the work you've put in was for nothing. Dad would have become nicer anyway because men get nicer when they get older." And he almost mocked me, because this has been years of struggling and fighting and us all being unhappy. And he's a teenage boy, mean, like, and I said,
Yeah.
and I was kind of wondering maybe it would have been, but then that holiday was the worst holiday where my husband's temper was the worst. So that really put my son in place, and after I met you then, really now things are actually healing. It's not just, and also my dad and his dad didn't really get better with age. You know what I mean? So it's not just time. This is intimacy skills changing our lives, you know?
That's
Yeah.
right. And
Because in 28 years nothing got it better. It's not time. It's hard work, you know? It's learning what it is to have a relationship and not having fear, not fearing each other, but supporting each other and being there for yourself and taking care of yourself,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. So inspiring. I love it.
Yeah, it is.
So, what's your tip for somebody who is where you were, where she feels like her husband's a bully? There's constant conflict,
Yeah,
hurt for days. She doesn't, it's gone on for years and decades.
yeah,
Doesn't know how to stop it. And she wants what you have now, where he takes her on a holiday for their anniversary and gets her earrings and apologizes immediately when
yeah,
you say ouch,
yeah,
and has and is it sounds like a great father and can take care of the
yeah,
kids for 9 days with no
yeah,
conflict.
yeah,
And she wants what you have. What is your tip
yeah.
for her?
Well, I wrote down all the skills and, all that, but we've discussed it all. So I guess what I would say is definitely read the Empowered Wife book and read the As Good as It Gets book. Because I didn't want to read As Good as It Gets because I thought it would make me sad because my life isn't there yet and it's not that great yet. So I'd be sad. But that book isn't about just, having this amazing life. That the As Good as It Gets book is actually amazing because it's a lot about being your absolute best self and going into that detail of the skills, the detail of receiving and self-care. And that was a beautiful book because it's those details that we've discussed of how to use the skill, when to say I can't, when to, it's just such a beautiful detailed book of how to use the skills. And then the podcast, because you will never probably understand how to use the skills in that much detail if you don't have the podcast support, because you explain it in detail. And I love your little lessons. That was life changing, but also the woman's experiences, like that's indispensable.
It is indispensable. Now,
Yeah,
people are going to hear your story about saying ouch
yeah,
twice.
yeah.
Say, I did it twice.
If you don't back down, that hurts. That hurts. And then also, I did do a ridiculously happy wife for a few months, and that's just beautiful. It's lovely and it's worth every cent. And it just, in those few months that I was really lonely and had to figure out self-care, that really was just such a support to me to have those lovely ladies that you get to know, and everybody's struggles are basically the same as yours, and and their answers are the same as what you need. You can get something out of every somebody's pain. You get an answer for something, just a beautiful answer to all your questions every time, so that's a lovely group of women to discuss your deepest pain. And everybody knows where you're coming from, and everybody can learn from the answers, in some way. It always applies to your life. So that was just, I wish I could have it forever. It's just amazing.
Oh, love
Yeah,
that. I love
yeah,
that. What do you think you would say to Henriette if you could go back in time, as you are now, everything you know now, and you could
yeah.
tell her something? What would you say?
I would say, to me, I thought about that. I would say there are answers, because people always kind of laughed at me for searching so hard, because they're like, you have to find somebody better, or you have to marry somebody else, or you have to leave, or you have to, or that's just personality, but no, there are actually specific answers out there on how to have a happy relationship. And that's something that our family generations didn't know. We just never knew. When I was young, I would look at these families and the dad would help the mom and the kids would be so happy and the dad would be so caring and so concerned about them. And I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? And I was searching and I was almost thinking that there's not answers. There maybe it's not something you can put your finger on, but you can. There are answers out there and specific things, how to have intimate relationships without fear and without resentment, and and also that you have to make yourself happy first, and which is such a hard thing to learn.
I love it about you that you never stopped asking those
Yeah,
questions. You never stopped looking for those
yeah,
questions. 'Cause
Yeah.
it was a long, hard road for you
Yeah. Yeah.
while you were asking, and,
Yeah.
somebody else might have given up.
Yeah.
But when you found your answers, you were just the opposite. You threw yourself into them with so much commitment,
Yeah.
and it's so inspiring to see the results
Yeah.
that you created with that, Henriette. I
Yeah.
just love it. In fact,
Thank you.
I wanna congratulate you.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
here. It's my Best Wife Award.
I forgot you gave out those. That's so
You're
exciting.
getting the Best Wife Award, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've done a wonderful job, and, not just as a wife, but also as a mother. I hear that you've
Thank
created
you.
a lot of peace in your home and, an environment where the relationship between your husband and your children is thriving. I
Yes.
just give you all the credit for that and,
Thank
for
you.
being such a beacon of what's possible, even if you feel
Yeah.
bullied, even if you, think it is hopeless or people are telling you to leave,
Yeah.
you can make a beautiful family life.
Yeah.
So,
It's
congratulations.
magical. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
you're welcome. Your story is so inspiring and wonderful, and, I think, it's a great contribution to what you talked about before, which is, people being able to hear the specific stories of
Yeah.
how the skills apply so that they
Yes.
can use them
Yeah.
themselves. I think you're fixing a lot of marriages today.
Thank you. And obviously, Laura, I just want to say thank you to you because I read a lot of book. A lot of books are from men's point, written by men. And I think only a woman that was married to somebody who responds in a way, that is avoidant or that is only somebody who really went through that hell and that heartache really knows what the stuck position you're in, if you just don't know what to do. And it's just such a labor of love. Yeah, it's really special to have somebody who understands exactly what you're going through and who has found very practical answers of what to do. And it does actually work, which that's magic because mostly those things don't work. so, so I just want to thank you
Oh,
for that gift that you gave our family and the coming generations.
hmm,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate the encouragement. That's very moving. That's
yeah,
very moving.
really is. Thank you.
Okay, your try it tonight takeaway is one word. Ouch. I know, it sounds way too simple to do anything at all. Henriette thought so too. You heard what happened the first time she tried it, right? Her husband laughed at her. He said, "Yeah, that should hurt. You deserve it." And she thought, well, that was a bust. Ouch, doesn't work. But she didn't give up. The next time he said something that stung, she looked right at him and she just said it again. Just ouch. She had to say it twice. And did you hear what happened? For the first time in 28 years, her husband stopped and he said, "I'm not trying to hurt you." Henriette stayed with herself instead of telling him why he shouldn't talk to her like that. And then he heard his own conscience and got to his honest truth. He didn't want to hurt his wife. And then her whole family became the ouch family. So here's tonight's experiment. The next time someone says something that stings, your husband, your kid, your sister, don't explain or defend or list all the reasons that they're wrong. Just say, ouch. And if it doesn't land the first time, remember Henriette, say it again. Now, you're the expert on your own life, but you might be surprised, like Henriette was, at how much power there is in one small, honest word. If you want to try this experiment alongside thousands of other women this week, including my certified relationship coaches, come join us in the Adored Wife community at adoredwife.com. This takes some courage. Saying ouch is vulnerable. But if you're feeling brave, you can do it tonight. You ready to try it? Okay, go, go, go.